Sorry. In addition, we ask that all those in attendance conduct themselves respectfully at all times during this meeting. Any outbursts or disruptive behaviors may result in your removal from the board meeting. The following board members are in attendance: Tracy Miller, Allison Lasan, Catherine Sells, Dr. Buddy Bonner, Christy Hassett, and Jenny Prosnick. Ms. Cox will be arriving late. She's at the Farmtown Town Council meeting. I've asked Ms. Hassett if she would pray.
Join me if you would like. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this wonderful day that you have given us. We appreciate the time that you've given us to come together, and we hope that we have open minds and open hearts to hear all of the business of the district, to make sure that we're conducting the business in the best interest of all of our students and all of our staff, and make sure the community is growing rich and strong. We want to have particular notice to anybody in our community who might need a little extra support and love and care. Hopefully they will reach out to you, and other community members will also reach out to them to make sure that they have their needs met during the season, that not everybody has a joyous season. But we do also want to be very, very thankful of the season that you have given us during this time of year. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Hassett. We'll now convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code 551, specifically 551.071 and 072. The time is 6:03 p.m. Should just get a mic instead of was always pretty good about like looking at it. Does he have an account yet?
Yeah, everything's been set up. I talked to him on Friday. Got him, personal devices, getting an email.
What's his name?
Gary.
Is he a doctor?
I think he might be. I don't know for sure.
We'll have to get him a laptop, or at least we'll have to image. We'll have to reset up the one, because I gave the one for WebEx meeting. I think it's tied to that. Michael assumed it was, but I got it set up for Bronco Lab, which is fine. So. I'll log in as gas and maybe change the name, but maybe they fixed it. Maybe it was an issue and then he fixed it. I know that was, I was telling Sean midday, I was like, oh, we may have to fix one on a laptop. So it's fine.
Mike is in one of the laptops that we use for the board.
Mm-hmm.
First one contacted Dell. The website says warranty, but when I try to get one to repair for it, it says it was out of warranty. Oh, is your desktop on?
It just depends on the hot mic issues. They're trying to see line up, but there's so many gates for it to be muted, like because they have to press the button, and then that's muted. I think it's just like a feed for that, like the general feedback.
I remember one time when we had everything muted, it still.
There was one time because I was here one time. And it was one of the MacBooks had the mic line on, so I checked all the mics on all those, and they were all off. So I think it's just the general feedback from it is clicking it off. But the other person on here is because I know it's muted going out to the screen. I'm sure it does.
What was that? That's a design.
I wonder if
No, David Smart. Network.
yeah, I wonder if you're right. Yeah, I wonder if that position changed. Maybe you just have to re-enter information. Save, right? Maybe
Yeah.
re-enter it.
There's password.
Yeah,
Tonight.
I'd have to. That's possible. But if that's local use of well, it could conflict that. Let's he made a change today. We were actually trying to decipher what he meant that he did. So he took the local admin permissions away from everyone, and your domain, like there's a safety feature, but it's like I think it's conflicting with remote desktop. That shouldn't matter because it's in the domain account still unless he took it out of it. It wasn't what he said. It was hard to tell what he was saying. I mean, we do have the computers going. Right here, they're on. When was the last time it worked? Last week? Did it work last week?
Yes, it did, because we had a board meeting.
That's the only thing I can think of. Off the top of my head.
Well, it's at the last board meeting, I don't think I tried last week.
There's a setting you have to script something for people's computers that people are moving.
Yeah, isn't there a remote?
I shouldn't have to VPN though, should I?
No.
I don't know if that was different.
That's only when you're at home.
Yes. I didn't know whether, what he did.
That's grayed out, so most likely that one will be grayed out with the same pattern and all that.
It seems like we could
Anything we can do right now until we can talk to David and have him figure out why it's doing that.
just said denied, right? Not connected.
When's the last time you rebooted your desktop?
Does it? Do I need to reboot it?
Just give it a shot.
We can give that a shot. Maybe he did a change that he got before you rebooted, and then maybe someone had complained about it, and maybe it fixed it. So maybe it reboot with
Just force it to yourself.
yeah. It'll force it. It'll update the settings. Is it unlocked? I can run up there.
It'll probably be in there a little bit, right?
I have no idea. You know,
So you free
I'll go
buy?
up there, I'll go up there to test.
That sounds like.
I think we probably didn't realize.
Yeah. That's always how it goes every time you make a change like that. I'm surprised it wasn't telegraphed more that it happened. Especially to you. Especially since it was probably admin thing. Which I find weird anyways. Like, that seems like a weird group to specify that particular thing.
We think he would go like to the school or something.
Yeah, like they would test it like a school before they.
did it an hour ago. Nancy,
When's Nancy's birthday?
it's pretty soon, I think. It's before the break, isn't it? Or she's not coming back. She's not coming back.
Undo David's mess before you your last pass. I'm very concerned.
I forgot what we were talking about. But Nancy was like, oh, there was something to do with that software that facility uses for something. But I think the campus is using it also. But
Oh, actually, no.
no, actually, something else to do with that the doors, I think.
Yeah, the actual thing.
Okay.
Oh, DNA fusion?
Fusion.
Yeah, that thing's a nightmare.
Yeah, so
That thing is a train wreck on fire.
Matt Garrett had his TV replaced, which his desktop runs off that TV, and it was like it's better like resolution. So when he opens up the program, it's like that big. You can't see anything. But once you log into it, he was able to go into settings and change some stuff around so he was able to use it. But he was asking why it was like that. I talked to Nancy. So someone like they didn't program it to only have a certain amount of pixels or something.
I have never seen a program that is hot trash more than that thing. Like, according to Casey Zindler, was telling me that I guess he's talking to somebody. I guess my first implementation job is somebody or Noel, I guess. Like, like apparently when they were saying what they needed it for, like it didn't have network access. So we had to have network access for it to work for us. And so rather than tell us they couldn't do it and us going with another company, they like stapled it together. So for us to get it to go, like you have to jump through so many hoops to get that thing to work correctly. Like I spent 3 hours last week with him getting that to work at, and we had to end up getting coal, and it's just like, there's a million steps to it, and you have to put everything in its right place, and you mess up one thing, the whole thing breaks. And you have to start all over there. And it's like, it's just like I don't know how that thing, I don't know how we're paying money for that thing. Like, for me, I'd be like, no. We're not paying for this. I don't know if it's the only thing that's the only company that does that specific thing. I don't know, but man, we need to stop paying some money. That thing is awful. It's something that can schedule the door controls, I think. It's something that can like, hey, schedule them all to be open at one time or something like that. It's just like, man, trash. That thing is awful. If you program that, I could have done a better job.
The top. Maybe it's did he not turn his off? The only one that turned on was that one right there. Tracy. both desktop, the Windows desktop people, they're both off.
They're both off?
Well, like, clocked out for the day.
No, on that first one.
I'm sorry.
That's just not right.
I didn't even know that they made changes to our admin rights to computers. Lee's the one that told me about it.
And I know it's not like without testing.
There's ambient sound on it. Too. Like, I wonder if it's just ambient sound that's coming through.
Okay, we're back on record in open session, having returned from closed session. The time is 7:11 p.m. Please let the record know that Ms. Cox joined us at 7 p.m. Please join us in the pledge for the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. Vision Mission LSC Cornerstones, Dr. Rapp.
Yes, thank you, President Miller. Our cornerstone statement for tonight is I collaborate, communicate, and persevere, specifically viewing challenges as opportunities. I wanted to share with you all, you heard about reading academies a while back ago, and so when you talk about viewing a challenge as an opportunity, which we did with y'all's support, we have 570 teachers who are going through our reading academies on top of all the other things that we have going on this school year. And we look forward to providing an update about reading academies soon, and we're proud of those teachers for all the work they're putting into that.
Thank you, Dr. Rapp. Persons desiring to address the Board of Trustees must fill out speakers' cards. In accordance with district policy, only speaker cards addressing items on tonight's agenda will be acknowledged. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes. The board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda. We have no speakers. We're actually going to change the agenda and move item 7, I.7, to the front. Construction internal audit, Ms. Hassan.
I'll go ahead and ask Ms. Brown and Ms. Bell to come up. And we also have Mr. Gilbert. I just read his name. Oh my gosh, Hopkins is online. Hi, Mr. Hopkins. As they're coming up really quick, congratulations to staff. Spoiler alert. But I wanted to we've gone through a couple of audits, so I wanted to just make sure the board understood a little bit of the differences in the wording of the audits. The other audits that we had, there were findings and then therefore recommendations. So later on, when you hear recommendations, this audit had no findings, things that were needing to be addressed immediately, findings, but there were a couple small recommendations. But it's not on the same level as an actual finding. So there's two different levels, findings and recommendations, and there were no findings. But that was a little bit of spoiler alert. Ms. Brown, I'd let you introduce Ms. Spell and Mr. Hopkins.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that introduction, and I want to thank all of you guys, the board and the staff, for your trust and confidence in our firm. For the record, my name is Darlene Brown, and I work with McConnell and Jones, and we conducted this internal audit at the construction. I have with me Lillian Spell. She was our manager that ran most of this engagement, and on the line is Gilbert Hopkins. I believe he's on the line. He also did a lot of the work on this audit. Randy, did you want to say anything at this moment? Okay. All right, perfect. So we completed this audit, and as Ms. Haskett said, we had no findings. It's a very, very good audit. We haven't seen anything like this in a long time. So next slide. Today I'm presenting what the audit objective was. We're going to reiterate what our focus areas were, present our conclusions, our commendations. We didn't have any findings, but we had a lot of commendations, and so we're going to highlight a few of those. And then the improvement opportunities. And for us, an improvement opportunity is something that the district consider to get you to that next level. You're already at best practices, but it's going to get you the best in class, and some things to consider down the road. Okay, so on this slide, we have what the business objective is, and it's important for us as auditors. We always see what is the organization doing to make sure that there's processes and controls in place to help you meet that business objective and mitigate those risks that would come along with that. So our audit objectives, they were to assess the management control structure, and by that we mean the governance, which are your policies and your oversight activities, to determine if the controls or and processes provide you reasonable assurance that your objectives can be met in an effective and efficient manner. Also, because you did have such a large bond program, we looked at what are the safeguards in place to make sure that that money is handled according to how it was voted, and also is it protected against fraud. Okay, so our focus areas. First, we looked at the board policies, that's the governance. We looked at the policies and procedures that are developed by the department themselves. We also looked at the organization structure and staffing to make sure that there's enough staff in place and that the staff that are there have the skills and qualifications needed to run such a large program. Then we looked at how are the projects monitored, how are they planned, how are they executed. We looked at the payment applications because usually if something can go wrong, it's in this payment application process. You could be paying for things that you didn't get. So we paid a lot of attention to that. We looked at change orders because frequently change orders are a process that can be used by contractors to get more money from you, and they're not necessarily needed. And then we looked at the information systems that are in place for the organization to make sure that they're meeting the needs to help you run efficiently and still have the documentation in place. And I got to give great big thanks to Randy and his team because we were able to complete this audit in rapid time. And that is a demonstration that the processes that are in the procedures are followed consistently. Everything we asked for was provided right away, and we didn't have to keep going back and for clarification and say, well, this is the wrong thing. We got it. Okay, so the information systems support the needs of the district. So in conducting our audit, we asked several questions to ourselves to make sure that we were looking at the right controls and the right processes. So we applied procedures to answer these questions. Number one, is the management control structure, does it provide reasonable assurance that the construction management program is effective and efficient? Then we looked at the cost to make sure that they were allocated correctly, that they were reasonable, that they were allowable according to the contracts, and that they were approved appropriately. There's several layers of approval that are required with the payment applications before the money actually goes out the door. And so that's a good process you have in place. And then are there processes in place to effectively manage your construction projects to make sure that they're delivered on time and within budget? And then the quality is as you have specified in the contracts. Another questions that we asked are, do the controls allow for contracts? Are they reasonably executed? Are they authorized? And are they documented? So the district uses a standard contract, which makes it very easy for all your vendors to know what they're going to be bidding on. Makes it easy as auditors to know what we're looking at, because we selected 6 projects that were totaled $161 million, so that's 22% of your bond. And we looked at those payment applications, and we looked at the contracts, and everything aligned. And then lastly, does the program allow for management of the supply chain? Those, as we've all heard, supply chain issues are not going away for the next year or so. And Randy and his team have worked closely with your vendors every day, every week, to make those long-term projections to make sure that you weren't negatively impacted by those cost hikes. So that's a very positive thing and a good process for anything coming down the road. Okay, so what's really important to everybody in this room and to your community is the 2017 bond package. If I'm sitting as a community member, I want to make sure that the district used my money according to what I voted on. So on that one, we looked at, was the bond package administered according to the documents that was presented to the public to vote on? We also looked at were the projects completed on time and within budget? And actually, there were some cost savings that were able to be moved to accommodate some of the cost hikes as part of this past year's logistics and construction cost raises. And then again, is the information that's being reported to the district through the website and various tools, is it accurate and complete? Because that's important for the community to have some assurance there. So the answers to all of these were yes. The controls and the processes in place, they're effective. And you actually have some best practices in your processes here to make sure that those controls are effective. The 2017 bond package has been administered according to the referendum. And as stated, we didn't have any findings to report. And the findings for us is an internal control weakness or a non-compliance issue. And there was none of that. And I know frequently auditors don't like to come back until they have some findings, but that's not the case for us. If we deem that your processes are effective, we're not going to create findings where findings don't exist. Conversely, we had actually identified 9 best practices that are in the report, and so I'm going to highlight some of them here. First of all, I want to congratulate the board because you're very involved in the whole program. You review and you approve any overruns or any change orders before the fact, unless it's an emergency, and then they come to you after the fact. The Construction Manager at Risk program was well executed, and one of the best practices here is you qualified a lot of construction managers at risk ahead of the program, and then as each RFP comes up, you go out and you select one, make them compete from the pool. The payment process was modified to make sure that vendors are paid in a timely manner. Again, that's very important in this economy because there's a lot of competition for these same services, and if a vendor's not getting paid in a timely manner, they're just going to go on and go to somebody else, and so you're able to protect your vendor pool. Another really good thing is that your CMARs, they have to submit weekly reports, and these status reports are clearly labeled as to what the project status is. And so we looked at those, and it's consistent. They're submitted on a weekly basis, and those labels are accurate. Another good thing is that there's regular what we call retrospective meetings, and that's where the group, the CMARs, are getting together with Randy's team, and we're going over lessons learned from prior projects or prior stages of that project, and then you're making improvement opportunity changes along the way. So when we come to improvement opportunities, again, these are not related to findings, just how can you get better. We noted that the construction managers aren't really encouraged to belong to this Construction Managers of America Association, the CMMA, and we encourage the district to promote that, and because that can help build skills and knowledge. We think that given this tight labor market, that we should consider having a succession plan for construction managers and key positions within the construction department. We believe that because so much is run through spreadsheets, and we did find some just minor keying errors with like dates and stuff that needed to be reconciled, that we should strengthen those spreadsheet controls by adding some protection around the cells themselves so formulas can't be overridden or formats can't be overridden. And then we say to modify this big spreadsheet that's used to track all the construction projects, add a few more columns, and that would include tracking any bond savings by project and the source of those savings. And then if those savings were transferred to another project, where it was transferred to, so that you have everything in one big picture, as you could call it, in the spreadsheet. And then finally, we recommend to explore using the district SharePoint site workflow so that those payment applications can be submitted through the workflow and tracked rather than via emails. That way it reduces any potential opportunities for maybe working with the wrong version or losing it. Okay, so overall, a very, very good report. clicking. There we go. Last slide. The construction department staff execute operations in a consistent, effective, and efficient manner. And then so we really commend all of them for their help in getting us up to speed on how you do things here, for taking time out of their busy day, for getting us everything we asked for. And believe me, we asked for a lot. I felt bad at some time because we were asking for so much in a condensed period, but we wanted to meet today's meeting deadline. So the processes that are in place right now, they're scalable. What that means is if you ever have a need for a future bond election, and if it's even bigger, the processes are there. You can scale up very easily. You just need to add additional people to help. And they're sustainable. So even if Randy or anybody on his team were to leave the district for any reason, they could continue on. So the processes aren't built on people. And that's important. We don't see that in many organizations. A lot of organizations, the processes reside with the information and the knowledge and with the person. So be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have now or at any point in time. You can just send an email or pick up the phone and call.
We'll go around and ask some questions, but first, Ms. Hassett, would you or the committee like to make any comments?
They were wonderful to work with, quick, efficient. Staff said that they were easy to work for, considering it was an audit that we were forcing them to do. I'm thrilled with the results. I'm not surprised because staff is wonderful. So I don't have anything else. Ms. President, Dr. Bonner?
I'll just jump on board with your comments as well, Ms. Hassett, about an independent auditor doing due deliberations on the processes that are in place in construction management and finding exactly what we've always found to be the case as well. So thank you for that verification.
Since this was our first time working with you, I want to say it was a pleasure.
Well, thank you.
I found the weekly emails very helpful. I appreciate that when I had a question about some acronyms that you all were very available. And I also agree with Dr. Bonner. I think that it's always nice to have a third party's confirmation of what you know, because then it's not just a feeling, it's a fact. So I thank you for the work.
You're welcome.
Oh, and a shout out to Gilbert, who is actually on vacation, for being on this call.
Well, unfortunately, it did end Friday, but happy to meet you all. Happy to be here.
Who's place number 2?
I think that's me.
All right, you're up.
Okay. Hi, thank you for being here and for the presentation. And I don't have any questions. Congratulations, Randy, on a great outcome. I have to say, like Ms. Hassett said, I'm not surprised, but this will obviously really help us on any future bonds that we need to do. And also thank you to, I know that Mr. Martin was probably a part of this process, and Mr. Young's team too, so it just makes me happy and proud. And anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Just didn't know how the game worked, sorry. First of all, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you to the committee for all your work. I appreciate it. It was nice to see that we had a great audit. So Randy and Jason, thank you for your team. I only had one question, just to kind of maybe clarify. You'd mentioned the CMAA, all these acronyms for the construction manager. Looks like a certification. I know that was something you recommended, having maybe a certification, but wouldn't the companies be, whether they had that certification or applied to that trade, not have certified people that worked for them or be up on the market? So we're just wanting to see what the benefits were, or what the recommendation was.
Sure. It's more of a professional organization, so they're keeping up on market trends and everything that's not necessary, that's nationwide. And it's just an advantage. You can get random emails of hey, this is what we're seeing. in addition to some trainings that they would offer. So as with any other professional organization, there's certain requirements for hours of training per year. That some are free, some you pay for, and it just helps. Like I said, it's a suggestion. It's not something that you need to do.
So Randy, none of our companies are affiliated with that organization?
It's more our internal construction managers, I think, is what they're suggesting. So, and I don't think any of our internal CMs are part of that organization currently. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. Ms. Sells.
Well, there you go. Okay, now I can hear myself. Thank you. It was nice meeting y'all tonight, and just thank you, and once again, congratulations for such a clean report. I was just a couple of questions. Ms. Cox took one of them, but on the recommendations, especially the one where to include the extra columns for the savings, and there have been times when I've really been surprised that we have had the savings that we have, and of course that allows us then to move that to another project. And are you looking at those recommendations? I guess for Randy, can you talk some about the recommendations and moving forward, how you're going to address those, and which ones are doable, time frame, things like that?
Absolutely, sure. So, we've certainly looked at all the recommendations. There are none on here that are extremely difficult. I mean, I think a lot of these are good ideas. And we certainly want to add more information to that spreadsheet. I think that's useful to all. I mean, I think the closing out of projects was something that kind of evolved over time, right? We had to kind of, bring the close out to the board, and then we have to actually pay all the final payments and then do all the reconciliations. So that takes a little bit of time, but we're in a good spot now. I think I was able to kind of show when we needed it, fortunately, with for the fine arts projects. The last one, the SharePoint, I think it's a great idea, something that I definitely want to look into. Currently, I wouldn't say we have any issues at all with our pay app workflow, but this would help with giving visibility to all the team members so they know exactly where that pay app is in the process. I think that's an interesting one that I want to look into. So, yeah, certainly there's none on here that are not doable. I think we're going to try to look into all of them. Sure.
Thank you, everyone. So thank you guys for a glowing report, and I'm sure if there were some issues, you'd raise them. I don't think this is a surprise to us. I think we need to recognize Jason Hughes as well, who hired Randy, I think. But when we went through our CMR process after the bond, in fact, Jason did a lot of the work on the facilities, priorities, et cetera, the documents that were created. We all have big binders on these. And credit to them as well. Just want to remind the public how we got here. We agreed to do about 10 audits. We did 3 last year. The board audited themselves. We did a PEMS audit, and we did a human resources audit. And so this is our 4th, and very pleased with the work you guys have done. And tell OD, give him our best.
I will.
And thanks for coming up all this way to see us. We moved you ahead a little bit so you could get some time back. But just the other thing I would say is, and I think you've set us up for this, this is a really important process as it relates to public transparency. So this presentation tonight is important to us in the future, that people reflect back on us taking a look at ourselves with an independent company and making sure that we're doing things well. And I appreciate you giving us the perspective of that we're built for scale, because I think that's important for us as we look in the future. Whether we do things bigger or small, we're built for scale. And so with that, thank you very much for all of you. Again, give OD our best. And Randy and Jason, thank you guys for all the work you've done and your staff. We've put some great facilities together, too, that have really met the needs of a lot of kids, that make access and equity in LISD an important part of what we're doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Well, thank you for moving us up. And Odysseus did apologize. He had a plane ticket booked, but he had an emergency at the house and had to cancel that flight.
No
So,
problem. Thank you. Just give them our best.
I will, thank you.
Okay, Student Support Services, boundary adjustments, Dr. Rapp.
All right, I'm going to ask Mr. Kosh to come on up. Of course, we appreciated the direction of the board on specific areas to work on regarding boundary adjustments. And so tonight's presentation, Mr. Kosh will share information about those areas that you've directed us to work on, as well as where we are in that process.
Good evening. Let's talk about the boundary adjustments. We're going to talk about 3 areas. One in the Flower Mound High School feeder area, talking about Liberty Elementary School split between McCamey Middle School and Shadow Ridge. Another area in the LHS feeder, we'll talk about adjusting the boundaries between DeLay Middle School and Hedrick Middle School. And then the third one in the Colony feeder, adjusting the enrollment with some boundary adjustments between Lakeview and Griffin. Let's talk about Liberty, McCamey, Shadow Ridge adjustment first. In order to talk about these adjustments, I think it's important to look at some historical data, some past enrollment data, and then, of course, the projection data. So the past, if you look back to 2015, McCamey was over capacity. Shadow Ridge, I think, was just coming on board at that time. And so some adjustments or some lines of boundaries were drawn in order to help ease the McCamey overcrowding issue. And as you can see, over the course of the next several years, and then landing into the current year, the enrollment has balanced out at both of those campuses, both under capacity. The projected enrollment moving forward maintains the same under the capacity number. So if you look at this current map, currently, if you live in this area, and I have it circled in red, you can see there, you attend Liberty Elementary School, then you go to Shadow Ridge Middle School, then to Flower Mound 9 and Flower Mound High School. So we're going to be talking about that area that is circled in red, the yellow area circled in red. The impacted neighborhoods or subdivisions, I have them listed there. Many of them are known by name. Some of them are just listed by the developer at times, but this is for other individuals that want to know exactly the plots that we're talking about. So the proposed map changes, as you can see, the same area there circled in red now will be zoned if approved. The proposal change would be Liberty Elementary School. That stays the same. Those students then would now be zoned for McCamey Middle School and then continue on to Flower Mound 9 and Flower Mound High School. I'm going to move on to the LHS feeder adjustments between Hedrick Middle School and DeLay Middle School. Current enrollment data for these 2 campuses. You can see the capacity there, and then you can see the current enrollment. In the area that we're, under the current map that we're talking about, it's circled in red. The current, if you live in the red circled area, you attend DeLay Middle School. And we have 35 as the east boundary of this area we're talking about. We have Valley, the west boundary. We have Fox Avenue on the north, and then we have Bel Air on the south. Once again, the impacted neighborhoods or subdivisions for those that are interested in what the developers' plots and the names were. So the proposed map changes for this area would be, they would remain at their same elementary schools, Lakeland, Creekside, and Lewisville. But this area, circled in red, as you can see the difference in the map, the green area now would go to Hedrick Middle School and then on to LHS Harmon and Lewisville High School. The last area that we'll talk about adjusting boundaries is between Lakeview Middle School, Griffin Middle School, and Memorial Elementary School. Current enrollment data between the two middle schools in the colony. You can see the capacity there, and you can see the current enrollment. Take a look at the current map. Currently, the purple area attends Lakeview Middle School. Currently, the green area attends Griffin Middle School. In the red circled area is the proposed adjusted area that we'll talk about on the proposed maps. Once again, some impacted neighborhoods are subdivision by name. The proposed map changes that we have here, as you can see now, the area in red, in the lighter colored green area there. So the school path would be Memorial Elementary School, then they would attend Lakeview Middle School, and then they would attend the Colony High School. As always, with boundary changes and adjustments to attendance zones, FDB local is in play here. And you can see there the changes in the attendance zone. It's a grandfather clause for those individuals entering grades 4 or 5 or grades 8, and also siblings of those adjusted students as well. The key to this is the district transportation shall not be provided for such transfers granted under FDB local. We have a very outlined process for transfers for those individuals that are requesting transfers on our website, and we have individuals there to walk individuals through as they seek transfers, whether they want to transfer to other campuses within our district, as long as there's an enrollment space there, or they want to enact the FDB local, the grandfather clause. The timeline for what we have proposed is we're in December. We're having community communications going on. We have 3 community meetings scheduled. December 4th, which was last Saturday, we had a community meeting at Hedrick Middle School. Tomorrow, we have another community meeting at Hedrick Middle School, and December 8th, we have a meeting at Memorial Elementary School. And tonight, we have the board discussion item, which then leads us to January will be a board action item. And that's the 3 areas of adjustments for boundaries.
Real quickly, Mr. Kosh, would you just share on the Liberty McCamey how those families are being communicated with since they weren't on the list, please?
Yes, because the Liberty McCamey Shadow Ridge, let me go back to that map and you can see that. There's such few numbers impacted by by this proposed change. We are doing a voiceover of the presentation. I actually published that today, and I learned real quick that I hate my voice. And so I've taken through the presentation and did a voiceover, and that'll be published and presented, and then it could be attached and sent to the small numbers of impacted families in this area. So we're doing that in lieu of a community night meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Kaj. Place 5.
Go buy a lottery ticket tonight. I have a couple questions, and you kind of alluded to it since you're doing the voiceover. How many transfer requests do we get from those families to in the Liberty Elementary feeder? How many transfers did we get from those that were zoned for Shadow Ridge to go to McCamey?
I don't know the exact number. We do quite a few, but I can get those numbers for you. I can run those down and share those. Also in play there, that area does not have significant pedestrian sidewalks, and so bus transportation will be provided for those students in that area to their new middle school.
To McCamey. And then, this is just a favor, when you look at the map for the colony feeder for Lakeview and so forth, can we designate Leela in that going forward, since we're not going to be getting any children?
I will put that down and have Rocky add that to the map.
Just like dots or something along those lines. And then I do have a question, and you can send me this information. How many transfers requests do we get for Lakeview and Griffin? I'm just kind of curious if it fields out, or if we get more for one than the other.
I could run some numbers on that and give that to you, just like with the numbers for the Shadow Ridge, McCamey. I can do that with Lakeview at Griffin as well.
Final question, how many people showed up at Hedrick?
We had one parent, one teacher, and 2 administrators.
Full house. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Brosnick. Ms. Hassett.
Thank you. A few questions. So the McCamey Shadow Ridge, you're going to send out the presentation. You have a lovely voice. How can they ask questions? Is it provided?
The presentation that is being sent to them has my email address and my phone number, and along with Rebecca Clark for transfers. And in my voice, I told them to direct all questions and concerns to my email address.
Okay. And then for that McCamey area, there's a new subdevelopment going in. Where is that going to be zoned for? Do we know yet? It looks like it's roughly on that. Is it to the left of that line or on that line?
I believe it's to the left of the line, but when next board meeting, Rocky will be going over the demographics report,
okay,
and he'll talk about the areas that are left to be developed.
Okay, so when we're actually finalizing that, I think we need to evaluate that new subdevelopment to figure out, is it going, is it staying? And then when we decide, let's make sure we contact realtors and everybody who knows if it's changed. They sometimes might have old data.
Yes, we will. So I'll make sure Rocky touches on that, making sure that we have that information in the demographics report for y'all. And then once a final decision's made, then I'll get with communications about how we'll get this information out to the community.
Okay, awesome. Last question, I believe. The Lakeview Griffin, I think it makes complete sense, but are some of these families possibly the same families we just rezoned with Morningside and Memorial? And I mean, are possibly those families
There's a
touched
possibility,
again?
yes, there is.
So when are they meeting? So they get a December 8th.
Yes.
I hate the possibility that we've just changed although I'm thrilled that we changed elementary because it was a better flow than it was. How are we going to make sure to contact those parents that might be double hit by a potential rezoning for elementary and middle?
Yes, when we communicated about the community meetings, we targeted everybody that's living in this zone that's going to be targeted. So they were contacted directly.
Okay.
So they're aware that if they lived in this area, it's up for a discussion again. So on the 8th, when I have a discussion with the community there at Memorial, I'll make sure to inform them to make sure you fill out the comment card, give me your input, give me your thoughts, your ideas, and then I'll share that back out with y'all.
Okay, thank you so much.
The good news about the process, really, that y'all have asked to be put in place here is that these community meetings allow that kind of feedback to happen. So we can definitely keep you all posted between, since you would need that information before we come back in January.
Yep. Thank you.
Dr. Bonner?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Hassan?
I guess the one that makes the most sense to me is I don't have problems with any of the others, is the one around Hedrick. I think that, I hope that people realize that there will be some now that, can walk to school. They used to have to probably take a bus clear way up I-35. But I guess some of them too, that's one thing that maybe they need to be made aware of more, is that they won't have transportation, correct? Because they'll be, within the 2 miles. So I guess that's the only thing that I would point out perhaps to those parents, is that, they need to know they won't have a bus anymore. So, but
Yes.
they can walk.
They can walk. And
So,
in
yeah.
working with Jeremy Turner, part of that zone, the area closest to I-35, will still receive bus service. There is a stretch along Bel Air that is under construction, and so we'll be bringing in hazardous route information to y'all. So there might even be more of that zone that will receive bus service. The one parent that was there that night said, "I walked to this community meeting," and so you can see that. I hope that that's a correlation to it's a community middle school that they have in their neighborhood now.
Right, and it's a big, beautiful, brand new school, so I think
is
it'll
correct.
be really beneficial. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Cox?
Thank you, Mr. Kosh. So I just had 3 questions regarding the Liberty feeder pattern. So let's just say I can't see why they wouldn't, but maybe they would want to stay at Shadow Ridge. So then that would reverse. Just want to clarify this. They would not receive bus services because they would be zoned for McCamey. They would have to be taken to school by a parent or someone else.
That is correct.
Okay, just want to clarify that. The second question is, because I'm not very familiar with the subdivisions, but the McWhorter Creek, the Lake Ridge, Kings Ranch, et cetera, is this a growing neighborhood where they're still developing and there's potential housing developments, or is it built out?
It's fairly built out, but once again, on the 13th next week, you'll see the development there that Rocky will cover, and I'll make sure to touch base with him so that we can talk about that next Monday.
Okay, because I'd like to see what that potential might look like for that middle school with the development. And my last question is, how are we communicating with the parents? I want to make sure we're not missing any avenue, whether it's send it in the backpack or email. How are we making sure that nobody can say, I had no clue this was happening?
So using geocodes through Templeton Demographics, we were able to pinpoint all school-age students and families in these different impacted areas. So the communication sent information out to them. Then I also shared that with each elementary school and middle school principals, so they have a list of their students that are impacted by this. The elementary campuses were taking it a step further and having conversations with their counselors, because many times at the elementary level, that's where some of these parents go if they have questions about enrollment and what does it look like. So we're trying to tackle it on several layers there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. Ms. Sells?
Kind of piggybacking on Ms. Cox's, I know that I know several families within those zones, and the parents, maybe English is not their first language. Are we addressing that in communication with these parents? Because I would hate for a parent to not have their child explain that to them, thinking it wasn't important or for whatever reason. But are we just allowing the campuses to put that communication, or are we doing something proactive on that?
At the community meetings, I have translators ready to go if need be at those meetings. After this round of community meetings, then I'll touch base back again with the elementary principals to see how best to communicate with this group of families. Because if we had one person come to the Hedrick meeting, there's more than one that needs this information. And so I foresee us doing another push of this information out for those families.
Okay. And then, and I would appreciate that, because like Ms. Cox, I don't want any parent to say, I never heard that information. And I know sometimes we can't take the responsibility for them to be somewhat active and involved in reading the emails we send or reading information we send home. But at the same time, I want to make sure that we have not missed any opportunity to communicate with our parents and our community in times of changes like this. These are important changes. I think, though, that for some of those, especially that Hedrick, it's, like you said, it's going to bring a community back into a community school, which is nice and refreshing. So thank you for bringing that forward. The only other thing I had, and we kind of just, when we say one parent showed up, but if there was only one parent affected, that would be a great turnout. So especially before the discussion in December, and I know we talked about this, or we've had information like this before when this was being discussed, but could you remind us again as a board how many students are affected in each of these changes? It would just be good information to have.
Yes, I can tell you. So for the Liberty McCamey ninth grade, we sent out 79 total notices for this area. So that's first kindergarten all the way up to 7th grade. We didn't notify parents of 8th graders because they're moving on to Flower Mound 9. The Hedrick delay, we sent out 733 notices. Once again, that's pre-K through 7th grade. Once again, not notifying parents of 8th graders because they're moving on to LHS Harmon. And then the last grouping that we sent out was, for this area, was 253 total notices. So you can see that the bigger number, obviously, is the Hedrick and DeLay area. The very small number of impacted families would be the Shadow Ridge, McCamey area, and then a fairly healthy number of school-age student parent notices were sent out for the Griffin Lakeview adjustment.
Thank you, Mr. Kaj and staff. Great questions from the board. I'm comfortable with where we're at in the process, and let's charge forward and look forward to an action item in January.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to have Human Resources next. I know people are concerned that I skipped land proceeds, and yes, I missed it. So we're going to come back to that after HR, and it'll fit nicely into the Westside Aquatic Center discussion. Ms. Smith.
How about now? Okay. Third time's the charm. I'm just going to begin this evening by saying, when Dr. Rapp presented earlier the 4 cornerstones, and she shared that viewing challenges as opportunities, I thought to myself, and this year with our staffing shortages that have really been a challenge, we've had many opportunities to seriously think about staffing in ways that we've really never thought about staffing before. So it honestly did make me think about that. And the purpose of our meeting tonight is really to share with you where we are with substitute coverage, and to bring the concern to you and bring some recommendations as to how, at least in our opinion, we need to move forward moving into the second semester. I would like to start by introducing Melissa Cobb to you. She is our Executive Director of Human Resources, and she directly supervises the substitute office. And so she's going to start.
Thank you. I just wanted to start giving you a little bit of a historical perspective on our sub rates for the last 5 years. So starting in 2016 to 2017, our budget was around $4.1 million. Our actual costs were a little bit above that, 4.16. The total subs that were requested that year were around 44,000. We filled 39,000 of those positions, and our fill rate stayed at about 89%. Looking down, you'll see that the next 2 years, we stayed at the upper 80s, lower 90s pretty consistently. Fast forward to 2019, 2020, we all know what hit, which was the pandemic. And so looking at that, you look at our fill rate, it didn't drop significantly. But what you need to remember that year is we went remote from March to May. Most of our spring activities were canceled, so the need for subs wasn't as great. Then we go to 20 and 21. We still have teachers that are teaching remotely. Not all of the students are back. Most of our activities were canceled at that time, and our sub rate dropped to 75%. Fast forward to today, this bottom row is 21 to 22 year to date, start of school to November 29th. That's the latest data we have. Our budget is $4 million. We've already spent 1.3, rounding up, cost, and that's given us a fill rate of 57%. That is just at a rate of 57%. So just think of it from that lens. So from there, we'd like to point out and provide 3 options of a way to help our campuses, a way to get our classes covered, and help our students. So option 1 is increased substitute pay. So looking at this slide, you'll be able to see just kind of some things we've already put into place and some recommendations. Historically, districts look at subrates and look at data and change subrates about every 2 years. Currently, our surrounding districts and even LISD are changing subrates. They've already changed them once. Some of them have changed them twice now. We changed our professional certified rate from $90 to $110. We added in September a retired LISD certified rate of $125 per day. We added in Friday, those that sub on Fridays get an additional $10. We added in the 9-week incentive pay. If substitutes work 25 days or more, they'll get an additional $250 at the end of each 9 weeks. After the first 9 weeks, we had 50 subs that qualified for that payment. Our pool of subs right now is about 450. So what we're talking about now, and this is really just those recommended rates, is to increase the rate again. And this comes from data from surrounding districts, what they're already doing. You'll see, and you can look at the rates or what our recommended rates are. It's to increase anywhere from $5 to $20 on most of those different areas. So our considerations for increasing substitute pay, we introduced the Friday pay and the 9-week incentive pay in September. Our fill rates are still consistently in the 50s. When you're considering looking at changing the pay rate for the substitutes, some things to consider. You graciously supported and increased the instructional support pay back during our budget proposal to $15 and minimum an hour. That brings their daily rate to $112.50. Our permanent subs that we have on each campus, their daily rate of pay is $125. So just a consideration in raising the rates, while we do agree and recommend that we should do that so we remain competitive to the surrounding districts, that could potentially impact those 2 groups of employees. Depending on how much we raise them, they could potentially quit their position and move into a sub position if it paid higher. So moving forward, I'm going to move option 2 to Sheila.
So the next option, and one that I've discussed with you back in August of 2020, is to consider contracting substitute services with a contractor. Some reasons that we might want to consider this is the substitute service program provides a full service model to its employees. So they take care of all of the recruiting, the screening, and the hiring. They also have on-site training that is customized to LISD. So for an example, our instructional digital platforms like Edgenuity, Google Classroom, they individualize that to Lewisville ISD so that they make certain their subs are meeting the needs of what we would need in our classroom. And then they handle all of the payroll and all of their insurance. Another factor to consider is everything from benefits, from workers' compensation. So if an employee's injured at work, from unemployment and all of the ACA compliance, they manage that for our substitute pool. I think it's really important to point out that 2 of our neighboring districts are using ESS for at least the second year. One of them have now been using it for 4 years, I believe. Frisco, right now, during this time period, is still maintaining an 85% fill rate. And Denton is maintaining an 87% fill rate. And they're right here in this area. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that we know Plano has gone out for a bid for substitute services, and they have a plan to move a plan forward to their board in January to do something similar. So we also need to consider what the impact might be if we weren't a part of something like that and the other districts around us continue to be. I want to talk a little bit about the pricing structure. So the way it works is with a substitute service program, we still control our rates. We have the ability to set our rates, as does Frisco and Denton and any other district. You set your rates. You can make them as individualized as you would want. So the paying $10 additional on Fridays, or maybe paying to sub in certain areas in our district where our fill rates are lower than in other areas, they are able to put in those differences to the greatest extent that we would want. One of their districts that they work with has 17 different pay rates where they have a pretty substantial plan to fit all of their needs. What would happen with a payroll is whatever is the daily rate of pay for that sub, they bill us 1.2845% for that position. So the example I have on the screen is if a substitute had a daily rate of 110, then the bill rate to LISD would be $141.30. In addition, or along with that pricing structure, they guarantee us 3 full-time positions to manage our substitute pool. Currently in my department, we have 2 people doing that position, but based on the size of our district, they would guarantee us 3 full-time FTEs. And then I think it's really important to point out the district only pays for the substitutes they are providing. They accumulate all of their money based on that percentage that I talked to you about. So just some more things to consider. One of the things that they're able to do is weekly pay. They have direct deposit every Friday, and for a substitute, that's a big advantage. The benefits that they are able to offer, they have health insurance for as low as $10 a month. That makes that very affordable for some of our subs. Then they have the vision, the dental. They have life insurance, and they offer a 401k. They have what they call targeted incentives, which means they give gift cards and other prizes based on the number of days a sub works for them. They give a $75 referral. They have a referral program that if you refer someone, the substitute gets $75. They have this employee discount program, which they call it Perks at Work. But basically what that means is they're able to save on these everyday and big ticket items or experiences as part of being a member of their workforce. And then they have newsletters, outreach programs, and things of that nature as well. So what I have attempted to put here when talking about the contracted services, this slide is just a review of what Melissa showed you earlier that shows you what our fill rates have been and what the budget has been for those fill rates as you move across. So if you go up to the 18-19 school year, that is the last year where we had no impact prior to COVID. And you can see that we had 58,366 requests that year for a substitute. So I used that number, that 58,366, and I tried to give you in this slide the what ifs, because substitute budgeting for sub-cost, we never know for certain how many people are going to be out long-term on FML. We never know for certain if the sub is going to be a certified teacher, a degreed candidate, or a person that doesn't have that. So clearly, we're making an estimate based on numbers. So if you used the 58,366 requested subs, and you had a fill rate of 80%, and if during that we were paying an average of $115, that would cost the district right now today 5.3%, or $5.3 million, sorry. So I just want everybody to understand that we have more than one factor to consider in the budget. If we had an 80% fill rate, we've also raised the rate of pay the last 2 years. So using 115 as the rate, we would be looking at the $5.3 million. Use that same fill rate, and if we were to contract with ESS and we had the 1.284 markup rate, that same fill rate would then cost us the $6.8 million. So then if you track down through the chart, you can see what it would cost us with an 85% fill rate, what it would cost us at an 87% fill rate, and then again at a 90% fill rate. One of the things that Mr. Martin has been able to negotiate is a guaranteed fill rate of 85%. So if you look at the 85%, you can see what it would cost us without their assistance, but what it would cost us if we were with ESS. So just some points to make. The Great Resignation is a real thing, and unfortunately it's happening in the workforce all across the country, but it's certainly happening here. Just to consider, we have averaged 59 open professional positions this school year, and we have averaged 66 open paraprofessional positions this school year. So that is roughly $4.8 million of open positions that are in the budget that I'm sorry to say we have not filled, but it is $4.8 million of positions that have been in the budget that we have that are unaccounted for. An ongoing concern and an impact on future staffing is, and I've talked to some of you about this individually, is the continued number of resignations that we are receiving. We received 4 this weekend of teachers that are saying, I'm not coming back after the winter holiday. That's just this weekend. We have 21 current resignations of professional staff that we have declined and are holding, that we're saying we're not going to release you from your contract until we can find a suitable replacement. Unfortunately, there's a percentage of those people that are coming back with, we do not care. We are not returning after this point. We're leaving the profession. We have about 5 or 6 that have said they're leaving the profession. We have about 14 that are saying they're leaving because of either personal or mental health reasons. So I bring that up to you tonight to say the resignations and the number of resignations that we continue to get, we're filling positions as well. We've hired 2 or 3 people last week in some hard to fill positions, but these resignations are just continuing. Honestly, like I have never seen it to this degree before. The other thing is the guaranteed fill rate, as I shared with you, is a part of their contract. And they've agreed to pay a penalty, a monthly penalty, if they don't meet that fill rate. Obviously, we all have to consider the budget. And it is a substantial impact to the budget. What I will say to you about that is, when you look at the number of open positions that we have, and you look at our fill rate being 57%, I've been asked several times, how do we help campuses? Like, how do we get campuses who are short 4 and 5, 6 positions? How do they make it day to day? And it is day to day. And a lot of times it's people covering, and what I would say is a get-by method. And we've spent a great deal of time this semester trying to think, with a lot of thinking partners here in the room, outside the box on how we can hire more people, how we can attract more people, all of those things. But you also know that the second semester is when you have more need for subs than even the first semester. So I just think these are all things that we have to consider, and consider what the positive impact would be on a campus if we could move their fill rate from a 57% to an 85%, the impact that would ultimately have on the mental health and health of our staff, our administrators, and our students. I mean, I feel like we really need to strongly consider that. I also think that when we have our neighboring districts moving to this system, if we don't, I have some concerns about what that will look like for us when they're able to offer some of those things that we're not able to offer. And the last option that I want to put out there is the weekly sub pay, because I do think that is a key factor to what entices someone to work for a subsystem. We talked about this with our payroll department, but our payroll department currently manages 4 monthly payroll cycles. And so adding a weekly payroll cycle is simply not manageable within our current payroll department. A key factor to this is the amount of oversight. TRS complicates things in how you have to report information to TRS. And so it has to be somebody with knowledge about the TRS system. We could consider contracting services for a company that does payroll, but that would be an added cost too, and then it would need to be somebody that is familiar with the TRS processes. I was not able to find a school district doing that, but it is an option and something, if you would want, we could consider further. So with that, I will just say I'm happy to answer questions or let us talk through. And Mr. Martin has really been instrumental in having some preliminary discussions about what a contract with them might look like, and so he can also address some of those questions as well.
Ms. Lasan.
Okay, I didn't expect to be first. Okay, a lot of stuff there. It's all, knew it was happening, but I'm glad to hear it, that you're bringing it to us because we absolutely need to do something. Okay, first thing that you guys said that I'm glad you recognized and that really does concern me is the bit about some of our for permanent employees that would end up making less than what a substitute makes. To me, personally, that concerns me greatly, and I think we would need to fix that if something happens, because obviously those are the positions that y'all have a hard time filling anyway, mostly, right? I'm guessing, for the most part. So I guess that's just more of a comment, but I really would want us to fix that because I have, anecdotally heard that from other people that.
So we aren't there yet, with one exception. Unless you have an instructional support person who also happens to be a certified teacher, but they're making the choice to be an instructional support person instead of a certified, in a teaching position, they could make more as a substitute. That is one exception. And then our permanent subs are a second exception. But it is something that I want us to consider because we can't just continue with the answer of just raise their rate and not consider our instructional support staff.
Absolutely. So I guess my point is I'm glad you recognized it, and if we do get there, we need to fix that with the rate. Okay, then the other thing that's was just interesting to me and is when you're looking at these numbers, because it went, and again, this is very historical, but 16, 17, there's 44,000, subs requested. The next year, there's like 13,000 more. And so I guess when you just sort of look at that, it kind of makes you wonder what is the real number. Why would that jump up so much? I don't know. I'm just floating it out there.
Sure. And there could be any number of reasons. There could have been more spring activities where sports, band, those things. If you go further, those all impact those numbers pretty substantially.
Sure. Okay.
If there's a new instructional rollout that, mandates that we have more training, that could be a possibility. There's all kinds of things that can be at play with those numbers, but those are some of the bigger ones.
Okay, well, that does make sense. Okay, and so this is more of, I guess, a comment on the contracted sub-services. I mean, obviously, this is not the first time we've talked about that. And I feel like the last time we talked about it, a year ago or so, we kind of said, instead, what we kind of did was raise the sub rates, and we thought, well, let's just see how this goes before we go into this new system, just to kind of see how it goes. Well, we've seen how it goes, and with this year and all that, it's not going well. So, I guess I think it's a good idea. I mean, that's my personal opinion. And I think you can make an argument for it for a lot of different reasons, and that you did well. I love the 85% fill rate that you said that you have. So have we already gone out to bid for this? Did we do this already?
No, ma'am, this would be through a interlocal cooperative contract.
Okay, so we wouldn't have to go out to bid for it then?
No, ma'am.
Okay, nice, okay. So if we decided to do this, like how soon they could get started this school year?
Yes, so they need 4 to 6 weeks. I'm going to emphasize the 4.
Okay.
So it's to our advantage if you are of the mind to be able to look at it on the 13th and approve it. Although we're off for 2 weeks, they're not off for 2 weeks. So that gives us an extra week to work with, and our goal would be to have that in place by the end of January to hope, to see the impact on our campuses.
Okay, the last thing I was going to say, basically because you brought it up, anecdotally, as I'm talking to friends that are teachers around the district in different places, I'm glad that you're aware of it and you're hearing the same thing, of course you are, about the resignation effect. I talked to a teacher this weekend who was telling me that she's expecting 5 teachers at her campus to resign, and as a board member, it makes me think, oh my gosh, what can we do to help this not happen, and if I do believe this would help, is it the only thing? No, but it's not what we're talking about here today, but I do, for this item, but I do believe it's a factor. It does concern me greatly. I'm glad you're aware of it, and I hope that we can find as many things as possible to keep our teachers, to help them, because it's kind of everywhere. And I know it's not just us. I know it's not just LISD, but, those LISD is what is in our hula hoop. So
Absolutely.
There you go.
Ms. Cox.
Thank you very much. So to Ms. Lasson's question, I guess, that she just brought up, so, I'm all about, I want teachers in the classroom. I love our substitutes, and we need them, but I want to see the teachers in the classroom, not substitutes. Our kids need to be learning from the teachers, not all the time substitutes. So I would love to see that number decrease, to be honest. And I don't know, what that looks like. I know we were talking about grow your own. So my first question is have we been surveying our substitutes? Like, what is it they want? Is it the weekly pay? Is it, what makes them want to substitute? I've asked that, I think before. So I'm curious, do we survey our substitutes?
I don't know that we've ever surveyed them, to be honest. I will say that the 450 that we have are working a lot of days for us, and the pay that we gave them, that $250 if they pick up more than 25 days, that has helped. The Friday pay for those 450 has helped. What we haven't been able to do is to increase the pool.
So that's my point. They're working a lot. So that means they're on this campus as basically a teacher. So, are we pulling them to, hey, do you want to be a teacher? Can we help you with that certification process? Sounds like they're on the campus like a full-time employee almost.
And the majority of them aren't teachers, but I can assure you if they are being asked. But we can, to your point, we should survey them, and that would not be a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, because I'm just curious. People substitute for different needs. I want something to do to buy my time while my kids are at school or whatever. I'd be curious, what is it exactly they want? We're making some assumptions here. Yeah, everybody wants money. Everybody wants Friday payroll. But, is that the true case here?
Another thing I failed to mention, I should have, is if they're working for them and they're a retired employee, they're not working for a school district, so they don't fall under any of the penalties of retiree hire. Yes.
Okay, for substitutes.
Yes, ma'am.
So roughly it looks like, if we're at the 80%, it's a little $1.5 million extra for the ESS program, correct? So, Mr. Youngs, where is that tree of money going to be coming from? It's looks like $1.5 million, and if you run, look at the numbers here. So where would that funding come from?
So if we were to we're saving money right now by having the 50 vacancies. We're not paying the money, so we're saving money now. We could save that money into fund balance and pay for the differential next year. But that's just that year. Once you have the fill rate up to 85%, then you've got the $1 million differential we'd have to factor into the budget. So for the first year, we're good. It's going to be self-funding with the savings that for the teachers we're not paying.
Yeah, well, I'm worried about for the future. Like, where is this money?
So 2 years from now, we'd have to find room in the budget for $1.6 million.
Right. Okay, so.
So it'd have to come out of the M&O budget.
Right, planting that seed, because I didn't see a tree of more kids.
The money tree has
influxing.
died.
Yeah. Then I was wondering, you talked about some full-time employees that we have handling substitutes. So with this new company, would we not need those employees anymore? So then what would happen to those employees?
So they would have options. They would have the option to apply and interview for the position with that company. That is typically what happens. Or if there's an opening within the district, a current opening within the district, that they would rather stay in the district and work for the district, then they could make that choice as well.
Okay. Yeah, I just hate jeopardizing staff too, giving them, I mean, that's their employment, so.
Right. And for a lot of, for the two that are in our department, it's really a personal choice about, do they want to stay in the district and in the TRS pipeline, or have they not, had years in a public education system and wouldn't mind stepping back out if it suits their financial needs.
Right.
But it would be their choice.
Okay, but is that savings factored into that ESS figure, that
Yes.
what we're paying for those employees, that we
Yes.
would not be paying that?
We would have 3 fewer FTEs.
Okay, and that's in
Well,
the,
2, I'm sorry. We would have 2 fewer FTEs.
but that's in the figures you showed us?
Not in the figures
Right.
I showed you. That would be an overall savings to the district.
Yeah, I would want to know what that is. I mean, as we're looking at our numbers, I would want to know then what's that cost savings, because then that brings that million down as well. Then I'm curious how this company, if we were to choose this company, I mean, now if we have Plano, Denton, I mean, they're guaranteeing this 85%, but we're in a little metroplex bubble here. So how are they going to fill 85% for Denton, Plano, Frisco, LS? I mean, how is this going to happen if we're already struggling and then we increase the pay? How are they going to accomplish that?
And Craig, you may need to speak to this in greater detail, but
They're-
what I will share with you is putting in the guaranteed fill rate. I don't believe has ever been, that was Mr. Martin's idea. So your point of we're in this bubble, I don't disagree with you about that piece, but I do know they've had the success in the other communities, but not all of the communities have a guaranteed fill rate as part of their contract. That was Mr. Martin's doing.
I think it's a really good question, Ms. Cox. I don't, in visiting with the representatives, I think they're, feel like they have a model that can accomplish that, but LISD in another neighboring district possibility does seem to look at as a possibility that would be a challenge. But I mean, LISD is a great school district, and I know they're excited to try to show what they can do. It's not the penalty is if not to be able to meet that percentage of 85%. There is incentive there for them to try to make that happen, but
Well, and I'm just going to be honest, the reason I asked that question is I want a quality substitute, and I feel like we have that here at LSD. There are moms, there are dads, there are people that are in our community that want to serve our kids because their kids went here. I don't want just, because we're guaranteeing you an 85% fill rate, they've got just somebody off the street that passed the test, all this, and they're in our classroom now not teaching our kids. So I'm going to be honest, I'm concerned about that because the bubble's not really that big. So my last piece is that I know we have a department that goes out and recruits for teachers and that. What are we doing for recruiting the substitutes besides the pay thing? How do we search for people? Like, what is our department doing to search for quality substitutes?
Oh, so we have spent all semester and all summer searching. We've put flyers up at churches. We've put it up in Indeed. We've sent flyers to current subs asking them to refer a friend. We've actively searched for our substitutes.
I think you should put it on our buses because they're out every weekend searching for bus drivers. Maybe we should tack on a substitute onto the buses. But anyway, that was, I know we work on like growing your own, so I guess that always hits home for me is to continue to recruit and get good people for the district.
And I will say, just as an encourager, when you say that, we have 83 student teachers? 89 student teachers signed up to start in the spring. To put that in relation, we had 35 this semester. So we're very excited about the 89 that we're bringing in, because every one of those is an opportunity for us to work with them for 12 weeks and then to be able to hire them. So we're excited about that.
That's very exciting. And then I guess the last consideration, there wasn't much excitement about it, but I would like that option, if we're going to consider all of this, to know what would that cost look like if we had to hire out somebody to do the weekly pay on option 3. So I would kind of like to know what that looks like.
Okay.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to bring it with no enthusiasm. I just can't find another
I was
district.
like, you weren't really excited about it, and I can see.
I can't find another district
If it's going to
doing
be
it, but-
presented, I want to know what does that look like, so I can really look at, because it's a financial decision, honestly, what I'm looking at.
Ms. Sells.
How much, or does it cost to become a sub in our district? Are there any costs associated with training or anything like that? So nothing. Would that continue in contracted? Would that continue with this company?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. I hate to see classes just being covered randomly, and when the fill rate is only 57%, that shows me 43%. And although we've heard stories of quality substitutes coming from our district, and I think Mr. Youngs, you were the one I heard about. We're paying Mr. Youngs to be the CFO. We're not paying him to be in a classroom. And so I think for our students, if we're making our goal student success, we need stability in the classroom. And if we're trying to recruit teachers, but that is not occurring, then another type of stability is a substitute who has gone through training to hopefully to prepare themselves to continue instruction in that classroom. And so for me, that is really key, is that, and I don't like spending the money for that, and 1.6 is a big number. But if we're talking about at the end of the day, our student success, I think we have to see where that lies and how do we get through this. And I'm hoping that we get through this, that this doesn't become the norm for us. But you and I have had this conversation about the disregard for a contract. And it angers me and it breaks my heart at the same time. And because the people who suffer are our students. And so I think, once again, I'm going to be a little bit optimistic and say this is a get-through time. And hopefully that we can see that. So thank you for bringing these forward. And Ms. Cox, I think, took all my other questions I had written down, but that's fine because it was good information to hear. And so I look forward to just moving this information and discussion forward.
My question's for you, Mr. Martin. How long of a contract do we have to sign?
Yes, ma'am. Right now, it's a one-year term. It would be 12 months, looking at the calendar year. And the contract would possibly have an ability to, terminate, upon on an earlier basis, depending upon the services provided.
Because I'm hoping against hope this is an whatever, I can't say the word. I too am concerned, like Ms. Cox, about the quality of teachers. I know this is not related, but I will ask, stepping stones, we approved stepping stones. Have we hired any teachers using that service?
No, because they have not met our standards.
And so that goes to Ms. Cox's thing. What would our standards be for our subs?
So we are still able to set the criteria. Now, I will tell you, in all honesty, we have adapted our criteria this year to be that we will take a sub with a high school diploma. That hasn't been the case in years past. That's purely to get more people to sub for us. But those are standards that we get to set along with the rates.
And then I do have a question, and it was actually brought to me last week by someone who's a former LISD teacher but not retired. But so they don't get the 125; they get just the certified rate. Have we thought of offering that to someone who taught for a while, left to have a family or whatever, and they would like to sub? Has that been?
We could absolutely consider that. The reason we made that little bit of a difference was just to say thank you for being an LISD employee, and we put it on a retired person. But for your example, yes, we could absolutely consider that, because the whole purpose of the different rate was to be respectful of them being an LISD employee, because they know the system, they're familiar with the schools.
Ms. Cox asked a lot of my questions because she is so smart. I agree with Ms. Cox. I want to see at least what that option 3 would look like. I'm more concerned about filling those 59 full-time teacher positions. Because there's nothing more important that we can put in a classroom than a full-time teacher. And I think that if you care about the future, then teaching is, in my opinion, the most noble of professions. So that's my shout out to anybody thinking about it. But I thank you for bringing this forward. I appreciate you giving the board options. That shows you trust the board. So I appreciate that. Great.
And I do want to say we are holding virtual job fairs every Tuesday, and we are having some success with those. We did our first ever all-district virtual job fair a few weeks ago, where all of the principals that had openings were able to get into individual rooms and meet with candidates, and we were able to hire 3 people from that process. So Alex has gone to 14 universities so far, recruiting and trying to bring people aboard. So I agree with you that those professional positions continues to be our top focus for students.
I think real quickly, the thing I would add to that, and there's been a lot of conversation and agonizing over what to do here about the situation that we're facing. And what you see is when our teachers are having to cover classes because there's not a sub, they can't then adequately spend time preparing for the classes they were assigned, right? And then you find the demands of House Bill 4545 then also spends the teacher's time as well. And so one of the considerations that caused us to really go ahead and decide to bring these options forward was the fact that our teachers are being spread so thin, and while we absolutely want to fill those professional positions and we want to have well-trained subs, which under option 2 we do believe that they would do, it would cause our current teachers that have been hired not to have to then prepare more classes than what they could originally do. So to your point, there's a lot of demands being placed that placed this conversation at the forefront. And the difference in the pay, Ms. Smith, real quick, would be the budget from $4 million to what ESS would be at 85%, which would be the 7.3. Correct. Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Hassett.
Thank you for bringing it forward. It's definitely weighty on so many levels because the budget impact is significant. First question, so the contract would be for a year, but if we started in January, is it calendar year? Or is it
Yes, ma'am. It would be
calendar
for a
year?
calendar year.
Which would be silly for us. Because then we'd be on a continual weird,
Correct.
that's just an odd way to do substitutes for us. Is there anything that we could,
That's because we're trying to start.
in the middle of the year? Totally agreed, but then we're always going to have that's weird. Who reviews the performance of the subs?
So if there are concerns with a sub, those always are going to go to a campus principal, but the campus principal submits that documentation right now to us, and Melissa and I usually work through those. If we were to go to a system like this, that would be submitted to us, but then we would be sharing it with those. That manager would then take on that responsibility, not us.
Okay. You had said Frisco and Denton had 87% fill rates. What is their pay for subs?
So when you saw the rates that we recommended, those on the right column in that chart, those are the higher rates equal to the higher rates that those two districts are have in place currently.
So they're using ESS and they have higher, so it's not just that they're using ESS, they're also offering more money, which allows them to also bring in subs as well. So it's really a twofold reason why they have higher fill rates.
Correct, but I have seen some people now raise substitute rates upwards of like 150, and I think that is a problem with the entire pay structure. So these are within our market that I do think we could consider making $5 to $15 adjustments. The biggest adjustment would be in the instructional support position.
Right. We would
Currently.
have to change that as well, so it's another cost.
The instructional support sub position.
Oh,
Right
sub.
now, we would not have to change our instructional support pay. If we raise it any more than what we're recommending to you,
Okay.
we're going to have to look at that again. But we're okay with that right now,
Except for the certified and.
except for the certified
Permanent.
that is in an instructional paraprofessional position instead of a teaching position. It's the exception.
Okay. I think everything else was asked and answered. I'm struggling with it on so many levels. It's a lot of money long term. I'm glad we can only do the 1-year terms. That's really helpful. Love the fill rate. That's brilliant on your part. But we absolutely have to make sure we're looking out for our teachers and educating our students. This is a tricky wicket. But thank you for bringing it forward.
Absolutely.
Dr. Bonner.
You're going to have to give me a little latitude here, given my experience with this topic. And I appreciate all the questions that have been asked because it knocked a few off mine, so I appreciate that. But for context, 450 subs now, you need to look at a longer range history than the last 4 or 5 years when we had upwards of 800 and 900. So that's one thing that wasn't mentioned, but that's an absolute fact. Substitute rates work in inverse correlation with unemployment. And so now that unemployment is back in the mid-4s plus COVID, absolutely get it. We were looking at this prior to my departure, and everything else that we've talked about tonight. So this is not new. What is new is ESS being in Denton and soon to be sounds like Plano. At the time it was in Frisco. I called my good friend over there, Pam Linton, and they were adding $1 million to their budget. This is 3 years ago to bring them in. I'm getting to questions, I promise. First question is about that. Sheila, if we were to bring ESS in, and I wanted to go sub for ESS in Lewisville, but I also liked Plano and Frisco and Denton. And let's just say I went one day every place, and then I came back to Lewisville for the 5th day. They can pay me a week for that whole engagement. In other words, it would expand our 450 to the subs in those other locations, right?
Absolutely, and thank you for pointing that out.
Tell me about that then.
Yes, they, very much the way Frontline works now, if we have a substitute that's in Frontline, but they are open up to multiple districts, there's nothing that keeps them from working in multiple districts. To Dr. Bonner's point, if we went with this company and they were working for ESS in Denton or ESS in Frisco, or they could absolutely work for us at the same time.
And I think that's one thing that's caused a dearth of substitutes here is greater opportunity other places. That's anecdotal, may not be right. What efforts are being made to restrict usage of substitutes at the campus? I've heard a lot about everything we're doing otherwise, but tell me a little bit about that. Have we taken measures with principals? Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we are in a crisis. We cannot support this any longer. And I know that with staff members getting 3 local personal days and 5 state personal days, we're looking at 58,000 days that cited year. We have 6,000 employees. That's everybody taking every one of those days plus a little bit more. So how are we restricting that at the campus level and frankly at the central office level?
So a couple of things that we have restricted is professional learning during the workday. We have really looked at that. There are absolute trainings that are mandated by law. CPI training is one of them. It's a law. We have to do that. So there are some of those trainings that have continued, but trainings that are optional, trainings that can be done outside of a regular workday are not happening right now in such a manner that it pulls substitutes off. Another example would be in the past, a campus has been able to say, I want my 4th grade teachers to get together and do PLC training for an entire day. And we bring in subs for them so that they're able to do that. That is not happening this school year. That is not happening. If a principal is right now forced to find a way to cover it on their campus, but we are not providing subs for those types of things. And, thanks to Dr. Fitzhugh's work, we have a report that we look at relatively often, especially on Fridays, and look at the number of personal leave days being taken, the number of school business or athletic school business days being taken, and we analyze that. And if we see a situation where it looks like it might be a concern, the number at any one campus, phone calls are being made, and we're saying, hey, help us understand. Is there a way you can decrease this, especially on Fridays, because it's a double whammy on Fridays?
Thank you. That was a question about incentivizing campuses, so I'll consider that for that. What about considering the approval of leave outside the campus, which would be a sea change in the Lewisville culture, but campus principals don't have that approval authority in that regard. It would be someone in your office or someone in Dr. Rapp's purview or Ms. Lewis or someone like that. Has that been considered? I know there are districts that do that.
Yes. So yes, in the sense that all the way back at the beginning of the year in Thrive, I made a point of talking to all campus administrators about stopping and looking at what they are or are not approving, especially before or after a holiday. And we talked about their authority to not approve those, have discussions about that. We talked about the guidelines that we do have in place. And I would say to you that we've had more campus administrators declining, like the 4-day trip, just to take
Good.
a 4-day trip or a 5-day trip this year than in last year. Could we look at that more and maybe put in more parameters and tighten that up some more? We could.
Yeah. And then the last question. I'll go at it a couple ways. Is it still the case that there are some campuses that are easy to fill than others?
Yes, and that's one of the things that the company could do is for the campuses that are easy to fill, they use our basic rates. But for our campuses, some of our campuses have a 20% lower fill rate, I know you know that, than some of our others. And they have the ability to differentiate their pay structure based on the fill rates of certain locations or certain campuses.
So we could ensure that those hard-to-fill campuses, which are often Title I campuses, low SES campuses, we could ensure that those campuses are filled, or subs are incentivized to fill those campuses prior than they would be filling an easy-to-fill campus.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
right?
Absolutely. We could make their daily rates different on those campuses.
Thank you.
Can I get a clarification on that? We would do that, we would change the rate, or ESS would change that rate?
ESS would, but at our directive. So we already have the fill rates by campus. We know what those are. They do differ substantially, many times by location or title campuses. And so we could set that up. They can set up 17, 18 different pay structures. So if we wanted a rate for Title I campuses and a different rate for our campuses with the 5 lowest current fill rates, that is all determined by us, and they manage it.
Go ahead, Ms. Hazen.
Could you get us the breakdown of the fill rates per campus? That might make my decision for me right away.
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before I proceed, the item we had before another municipality has failed, FYI to the board. So I came into this all in. I'm just at a bit of a pause. I agree with my colleagues, complicated juxtaposition here, or complicated situation, amount of money that we're going to spend, the fill rates, et cetera. What are you going to do with the 2 people that we have today, the 2 FTE? Will they be reassigned?
If that is their choice. So I happen to, I have an open position in my office that I've purposely kind of not filled. So that one would be, it's our receptionist position. I had somebody retire.
Okay.
So there's that one. But they might choose to go and work for ESS. They may want that choice.
Okay. But we'll save some money there.
Yes.
Okay. I like the ideas of guarantee in the staffing business. One of the challenges is guarantees do impact quality because ESS will fill their quota, and it sounds really good when they staff, and you get into week 2, 3, 4, or month 2, and you find that there may have been some compromises made to fill the target. So just something to think about and how you'd handle that. The hiring profile is determined by LISD, but these are ESS employees.
Yes.
Okay. So when we have employees that work for a contractor, there's co-employment issues. And in the current education climate, our ability to sever the relationship with employees is very important. Right?
Absolutely.
So we're one substitute away from making decisions in a classroom that could, if they're not LISD employees, we have to go through a process from co-employment. The employee could claim that we initiated the termination. That's co-employment. So we would need to figure out that language, in my opinion, to determine how much flexibility we have by law to actually terminate a substitute relationship.
But we do that right now. With all due respect, if we have an issue with an ABM custodian or with one of our bus drivers, We have that same process now. It doesn't happen a lot of the time, but we do have a process that we work through with the company.
Yeah, I would agree that that is a difference. And in thinking through that, while bus drivers have a lot of student face time, we have, in this case, substitutes delivering instruction. And the approach that they take to delivering that instruction may not be consistent, even though they've been taught by us. But they're also teaching in Denton, they're teaching in Frisco. And so you've got different cultures, different approaches, different philosophies. And so it just something that, causes me to take some pause on.
But I think we could limit our ability to receive that, but we couldn't tell them they had to fire them. So we could say, ESS, never send this person to our schools again.
We
But
absolutely
we can't
can
say,
do that.
ESS, you have to fire this person.
But we can say they will not be
Ever
back on
step foot.
LISD.
Yes, and in co-employment, you could do that. Nevertheless, the bigger filter is at ESS and not at LISD. I guess that's where I'm coming from. So that process, and we'll onboard them, do professional learning, et cetera, I just think it's something that we really have to consider. Ms. Hassett's right. In this type of relationship, you can ask for them not to be on your account, basically. Nevertheless, the damage could have been done, and so we have a little more control over employees. Which gets me to culture, making sure that they're really indoctrinated in our culture. I think you do that with our current subs. When we start trying to move from 57% to 80% to 90%, given the climate that we're in, we're just going to get some people that are going to, kind of fall through the cracks and get in. And I just think we've got to be really careful. Who says yes to the sub? So ESS hires somebody, and they come into LISD. Is there a filter then that says, I'm going to interview that sub to make sure that I want them on my campus?
Not interviewing them on a day-to-day basis. Now, if it was a long-term sub, many campus principals and even teachers interview a long-term if they know they're going to be there for 6 weeks or something like that. There's an interview process. Day-to-day, there's not that.
How does the ESS employee make it through the into LISD? Through HR?
Well, through their HR department using our processes.
Right. So it's 100% they become an LISD substitute without an LISD filter other than you preparing them to understand the type of profile we're looking for.
They become an ESS substitute working through the current substitute training that we have. All of the substitute training that we do now, plus some additional training they would be doing.
Okay. It's unclear, and I know there's a lot of opinion and ideas. It's unclear as to root cause of this, right? I think, what's causing this? When we discussed this in the past, one of our issues was kind of preference to schools or preference to feeder patterns, right? Parents wanting to volunteer in their schools but not drive across the district, which is why we made some adjustments in the compensation and some different requirements. So I think as we go into this, if we sign a one-year agreement, while we're in that, I think we just need to do some more diagnostic as to why we're here. I would offer an opinion, and that is that our community and our campuses need to help us. There are teachers leaving because of community influences, the way that parents interact with them, or the way that things happen on campuses. And so it's a very multidimensional thing here that I think that gets us from 800 to 450, and I would just ask that we kind of continue to look at that. I think this is a big legislative issue. Legislature needs to figure out how we're going to pay for this and pay teachers, because the front line of students going into the profession it's not increasing, it's decreasing, and so this is a long-term problem. This amount of money is about 60 teachers. The other way to put it, it's a 1% raise for all of our employees. And so, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think this causes us on a forward-looking basis to really rethink the amount of money we're going to have for raises, because the way we're having to address this issue. And so that really becomes a family thing for us, right? I mean, an LISD family, how we address that at all levels. within the campuses, within administration, within the board, et cetera, and the culture. Time to proficiency, I'm okay with that. ESS mobility, that makes me a little nervous, but you're right, they can do that anyway. And then I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to go up to land proceeds. You should have access in your board book. The board's had an opportunity to meet with the superintendent on some of these items. We've not had an opportunity to discuss this collectively, but I just wanted to go through some of the priorities that we asked staff to look at as it relates to how we would allocate the proceeds that we've gotten from the surplus land sales. So one of the things that we're looking at, or that we're restricted by from a window perspective, is we have so much time from the time we closed on that land to, and I guess, Mark, Mr. Youngs, you'll probably be our expert at the table, right? So we have so much time to use that money once the land has 2 years.
2 years.
2 years. So some of these things that we're talking about without really getting into the numbers are things that we're going to essentially, for now, encumber those funds against priorities that we see today, and then we have some things that we'd like some more work done by staff. So I'll just kind of go through them, and you guys can kind of interject or stop me. One of the priorities we believe is that we should allocate money for the Colony High School fire alarm, a complete upgrade to the system. We've seen a lot of campus refreshes, things around safety and security. Clearly, this is a safety and security item, and so the board, in the communications with the superintendent, all seem to think that that was a priority. Construction, we've talked a number of times at these meetings that there are overruns. We know there are overruns for a number of reasons. The products, the labor, et cetera, and we believe we need to allocate money to that based on our previous discussions, so that would be a priority. Technology, if we, getting into the next 12 to 24 months, there might be some technology issues that we need to address. This would be more along the instructional technology or IT-related things versus a later item I'll mention, and so we believe we need to allocate some money for that. Facilities, West Side Aquatic Center, we're going to talk about that in the next item, so I'll defer that, and we'll be able to ask some questions on it. I'm going to skip the facility service items, depending on some other things that take place. Classroom furniture for Marcus and the Colony. They have pretty old furniture, and so campuses that have gone through refreshes have gotten upgraded furniture, and so that was an item that seemed to be fairly attractive for most. And then middle school STEM furniture, this would be related to classrooms at Forestwood, Downing, and Creek Valley, and excludes Hedrick and Griffin. Hedrick, of course, which is brand new, and Griffin is fairly new. And that was the list of items that there was discussions with the superintendent that seemed to be priorities for encumbering some of those funds. Let me open it and see if there are any questions. I didn't roll the dice. That was Jenny. That was Jenny. Number 2.
How much money are we going to have? We won't approximately know that, okay.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about that another time because that number's not been finally. Number's not been finalized
Right,
yet.
but, okay, so I do have another question. So these are approximates, right? I mean, they haven't gone out to bid, so it could change, maybe.
Every one of these will go through a staff process. Dr. F.,
Yeah.
you want to talk about some of the things that you've been looking at?
Sure. Essentially, tonight, all that this would do is allow staff to start working on next steps, research, bring these projects before you. These absolutely are estimates. And so at that time, if there's any discomfort or no, we no longer see that we need to do this, then we could absolutely make that decision at that time.
Dr. Bonner?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Brosnick?
No questions at this time.
Ms. Sells?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, and then we had 4 items that are going to be items that need a little more discussion from staff. One is how we may allocate some money, but how we spend money on textbooks in library, or I'm sorry, library books, to make sure that it's kind of an equitable process. Staff is going to be looking at that. The Colony High School stadium concessions, that's not considered a priority yet, but we may look at that in the future. The musical instruments, there is a need for LISD to replace a good number of musical instruments. Ms. Drinkwater is going to be working on that and come back with some recommendations on how we might address that, what the numbers are and how we might address it. And the last is any need for kind of larger software systems that might create some efficiency and productivity within our staff. That needs some due diligence, and we thought that should probably just wait till further review. Okay, all right. That said, let's move on. Mr. Youngs, we're going to talk about the West Side Aquatic Center. Mr. Hughes.
Mr. Hughes is on the way up, and he will share a status update with the board.
All right, as it has been the district's practice, this really is our next step in the West Side Aquatic Center project. Actually, the construction auditors actually mentioned that it was actually a best practice that we do the construction manager at risk process very well, and we get them on board early. And so that's what this is. So, as you may recall, Stantec Architects was hired in November to do an in-depth review of the West Side Aquatic Center and to design for a source capture ventilation system, as well as addressing several of the cosmetic issues that were caused by the corrosion issues we've had there. Since the November meeting, a pre-bid for the construction manager at risk services was held on site at the West Side Aquatic Center. We had a really good turnout. The bid opened on November 29th, and we will be taking a recommendation to hire a CMAR for this project to next week's December 13th board meeting. And so, as I'd mentioned, the architect has started their in-depth review of the facility, and we'll begin working with the CMAR, if approved, to start developing a construction approach and the timeline and putting all that together. And then once those final plans are completed and then bid, the guaranteed maximum price, of course, would come back before the board for approval at that time. And so with that kind of tells you where we are. That's where we're at in the process. This is to get a CMAR on board to help us and the architect to start putting together that plan and get some pricing together.
Ms. Hassett. Ms. Cox. Dr. Bonner.
No questions. Thanks, Jason.
Ms. Prosnick.
You know I have them. I'm curious, where are we on the expert assessment report on what the solution should be?
So we met with the architects today. We met with Stantec's team today. They have put together a really impressive team of 3 professional mechanical engineers, independent of the original design group. They have put together kind of an 11-point approach that they shared with us, and they told us today that they're halfway through that process. And so that puts them about 2 to 3 weeks out of the initial review of the original design to see where we're at, to make sure everything's operating as it was originally designed, and that the design was, in fact, a good design, if you will. And so that is kind of where they're at on that piece. Once the CMAR gets on board, then they will start looking at the source capture piece of that we know that we would like to implement, just because it's the new best practice in pool design. And so they'll start that process, as well as some preliminary pricing and starting really to dive into that schedule to kind of see what that's going to look like as we implement these pieces into the West Side Aquatic Center. And then concurrently, they're working on their construction documents, getting ready and exploring options to address the corroded pieces of the pool. As we've
talked about the stainless steel and those items. And so that's where we're at in the process right now.
And where are we on the chloramines evacuation, if you will, at the facility? I know we put fans and so
Yes.
forth in.
Yes, we've done. We have placed the fans in place. It's been operating a lot better than it had. Talking with Coach Gillespie out there, they've had some events. They've had a 1 or 2 days where they felt like they had some buildup of chloramines, but then we're able to purge those with the existing system. And so we're kind of making our way through. It's not the best case. So I think it's what we're working toward, is getting to the best case. But we are certainly improved from when it was at the worst case, if that helps.
And then my final question, and it's a CMR question, is are all of these firms, because we don't know what the solution is.
Right.
That's kind of where my hesitancy comes on this, because it's such a specific kind of building with very specific, different, and unique kind of problems. It's not like we're looking
Yes.
at anything we normally do. Are we confident that these construction managers can do that kind of work? I'm trying to be as clear as I can.
Sure.
If the solution comes back from their 11-point thing, and it is outside of the realm of this, I'd like to know and if we choose one, I mean, do we need a specific construction company? Because we hired a specific construction company to build that facility.
Yeah, that's a great question. We've looked at all the teams. We worked with all the teams that were submitted in the proposal. We feel like we're very comfortable with all the teams that were submitted. We feel like that any of the teams that were submitted would be able to perform this project. The one that we are proposing is currently working on a pool in a particular district currently, and so they have experience in that area, recent experience, and so we feel good about that. We feel like any recommendations that come from the in-depth study, that any of these particular contractors that we brought forward, and especially the one that we are submitting, would be more than able to complete the work.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Ms. Sells.
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Hassan? I think it's a no-brainer. We need to do this. I think Ms. Prosnick asked some good questions. Here's what I would maybe offer on that. There are a lot of facilities. This was a world-class facility. There are a lot of facilities that don't have these issues. So that tells me that there are solutions out there or providers that can fix this, right? I mean, replacing rust, materials, et cetera. What I would just offer when this goes to consent next week and we move forward is that Mr. Youngs and Dr. Rapp would kind of look at the overall systems that got us here. This really became a fundamental issue because parents started raising it with kids that were taking swimming lessons that were 4 years old and then got broader issues. And so we shouldn't be in a position where we got this far with it, especially when you start looking at some of the health issues created. So I would just ask that along with this, you all think about some recommendations you're going to make for us in the future as to how we prevent this from happening. I mean, there are people working in that facility and visiting that facility, and employees should have said to us, we got a big problem, because these are employees who are experts in these types of stadiums and actually frequent these stadiums. So I'm concerned about how we got there, but not concerned enough to make a bigger deal about it than that, and looking forward to this being remediated as soon as possible, and particularly some of the health issues that Ms. Prosnick mentioned, evacuation of some of those things that I know you guys are working on already. So that's all I have. If there are no further questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kolbeck. This is our Technology Advisory Council and Technology Plan update.
All right, I think I'm on. All right, no presentation for tonight. I just wanted to give the board basically an update on what we're working on. So our Technology Advisory Council, as you know, we started that in 1920, and last year with COVID, we did not meet with the group. We did, however, in June reconvene, and as you can imagine, the first part of what we went over was sharing all the things we did in response to COVID. So I think that was pretty eye-opening for everybody on the council. And what we were doing pre-COVID, we were in the process of trying to develop our next technology plan. So what I wanted to do is get the group up to speed on things that we've done, but also get that in the rearview mirror and start looking forward. So really, since we met the first time, we've focused on developing or identifying what the group feels are needs that need to be included in our next technology plan. So what that looks like, you'll see in the background, we're aligning the goals of the plan to the 2018-2023 TEA long-range technology plan. And there's 6 areas in there: personalized, flexible, empowered learning, equitable access, digital citizenship, safety and security, collaborative leadership, and reliable infrastructure. So we've been going through basically a crowdsourcing activity over the last several meetings where we're putting people in groups, trying to leverage technology too, because we have people that might not be comfortable yet or have conflicts in their schedule to come face-to-face. We're doing a combination of face-to-face and WebEx, but it's been really good. Our students on the group have been very insightful. So I feel like we're making really good progress. We're to a point now where we're basically taking a lot of that feedback and putting it into those categories of goals. In addition, we've also had conversations with a subgroup that's really looking at access. And that access really falls into 2 lines, obviously, having access to the internet and then devices. I've shared with the board before, one of the areas of focus for this year is looking at, year 5 of our device refresh plan. We have to, address the devices that are shared, so to speak. That's something we haven't done yet. All of our MacBooks on carts. And I guess where we're at on this is there's a direct relationship between what level of, iPads or one-to-one are we versus how many shared devices do we have. So we've had some sub-focus groups where we broke those groups into PK through 3, 4, 5, middle school and high school. So I guess some concepts have come out of that we want to get some more feedback. We're going to be working with the principals and chiefs of schools to identify other staff that we can, broaden our input of some of those ideas. But ultimately, our goal is to bring something back to the board with a draft plan in February that you'd see a draft. We do have another TAC meeting coming up in January that our plan is to share a draft of the plan and continue to go through a crowdsourcing process to vet that. And I think the last item I want to touch on too is, in the process of the technology planning, we have to continue to replace some of our hardware. So this spring, we're planning on bringing what I would call our year 5 refresh plan to the board. In addition to that, we're at a point where, our current iPads, AppleCare has fallen off most of those, and we're getting into an issue where it's hard to manage our current fleet. And what I mean by that is, buying the cases, buying the accessories, the iPads that we initially bought, you can't get those anymore. So what we're planning on doing is bringing a recommendation to the board before we bring the whole 5-year purchase earlier for a couple reasons. One is, the big reason is supply chain. We did have a chance to meet with Apple a few weeks back, and they confirmed that they are anticipating supply chain delays. In addition to that, and part of what's driving that is some of the federal monies, like the Emergency Connectivity Fund, some of the school districts that do not have devices that are getting ready to purchase, they're anticipating kind of an influx of purchases plus traditional purchases that come in for the summer. So what we're planning on doing is bringing a recommendation to buy iPads for our incoming 4th grade next year. What we typically do is take the seniors and cycle those back through. What we're going to do is hold those and basically use those to manage the program for repairs, devices that can't be fixed, basically to manage the program. The idea on that is by bringing that in as a recommendation in January, our hope is that we would actually take delivery of those by May sometime, so that we can get them ready, prepped, and ready to issue for the start of the next school year. So point being, we're planning on bringing a recommendation on that in January, and then we have another TAC meeting in January. We're going to bring a technology plan update to the board in February, give you an update where we are there, and then ultimately some level of what I would call our year 5 device refresh plan, and that really should kind of tie out the items in the bond. At that time, I'm also planning on giving you an update of where we are with the 2017 technology bond balance, and that'll kind of fit into what Mr. Miller was referencing before with, kind of some of the financial needs going forward. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions you have.
Thank you, Brian. Dr. Bonner?
No questions, Brian, but I do look forward to the plan in January, so thank you.
Ms. Brosnick?
I appreciate the update. I look forward to more information. I will ask, and you may not know this, what grade level are your students that are on? Are they all seniors?
I think they're all, no, I don't think so.
Good.
Michelle? 11th and 12th.
I like having continuity where they get to carry over and do it 2 years. I think that's good, so not having all seniors.
That's something we're trying to work on too. We have an update of members in board book that were, so we're trying to, one of the items we're going to try to do at our last meeting is look at, carrying over for next year, who our members are, who's going to be our new members with obviously some continuity, but new members as well.
Ms. Sells?
No questions, just wanted to ask you to thank the committee members. I think most of us, before serving on the board, other than Dr. Bonner, who actually was an employee of the district, have served on a committee where you're not paid. And I think their work goes, for the most part, unnoticed by our community, but they bring such different perspectives and such wealth of knowledge that we could never probably pay for that breadth and depth, and I just wanted for you to take back to them our appreciation for what they do.
Will do.
Ms. Lasan? Okay. Ms. Hassett?
I just wanted to say thank you for making sure that you've always done a good job with your team to make sure that students who need help with devices, who might not be in the position to, you've always done a good job at trying to make sure that we have equitable access. I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Ms. Cox?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kobeck. We've come a long way in almost the 9 years I've served on this board, and I appreciate the great work of yourself, your team that's here, and the committee. But I just do want to make some comments that I would like to see, and I can't believe I'm going to go Miss Hassett on you. But, we've had 9 years of this iPad stuff, so I really want to see the data. I really want to see where are we using it in the classroom, who is using it most, 4th graders, 8th graders, seniors. I really want to see how effective it's being used on campuses, how the students are utilizing the iPads, because, we're vested now. This is what we have. So sustainability is what I want to see. Are we going to have to keep doing these bonds? How are we going to continue to sustain this program if we were to fail on a bond or something? How are we going to sustain this? Because it's here, and we have to keep it going. So that's going to be a big deal for me. And then cost factors, how has it provided some cost savings? I know we don't have the textbooks anymore, which I'm thrilled for. The backpacks are a lot lighter now these days, which is fantastic, and it's nice having the data on the iPad. So how has that provided some cost savings? Because I know the information was a little more expensive in the beginning, but hopefully that cost factor is going down. And then hopefully we'll continue to the E-rate and the grants that you've been so successful at continuing to have to help us with the budget as well.
Okay.
I know that was a lot, but
We do have another, I got to look at the calendar. We do have another technology update, and I'll try to, provide more data that kind of breaks down, how the devices are being used, where, to what level.
Yeah, because I know the committee before, when they met, you were looking at devices. But I really feel like we're ingrained in the iPad now. mean, so now it's not so much about the devices, it's about these things that you pretty much mentioned on here. So now it's just the sustainability and the data. I really would like to see how effective these devices are being utilized on our campuses.
Okay. Mr. Miller?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Colback, and appreciate all the work of the committee and your team, especially these have been difficult times for IT professionals trying to support this massive transition to a kind of a multimedia world. So thank you for all that, and thank you to your team. I think Ms. Cox echoes a lot of our thoughts from June 2014. But I think this is beyond just Content Keeper to kind of other levels of efficacy in instruction and learning. And so as we look at these technology updates and what we need, that's an important part to incorporate into this. And I know Ms. Jacobson is here as well. The other thing I'd add is, we have formed a strategic planning committee that's going to look at bringing in an expert to review at the board. The board hasn't approved that yet, but I think to Ms. Cox's point that in that we create some scenarios that say, if this were to happen, this is the path we go down. If this were not to happen, this is our backup plan. And that 5-year planning process, which again came out of the board's internal audit, would help flush some of that out. In the short term, though, till we have that, I do think that there might be some important updates. Mr. Colbeck, if your team can give us those, that would be great. As usual, I don't think that's a surprise request, so appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one last item, which is our General Counsel, Ms. Bay, to talk about board policy updates. 118 local.
All righty. I know I usually present from my seat, but Sheila told me I need to come to the big kid table, so here I am. So as the board is aware, TASB periodically will update its policies when there's a significant event or legislative changes. The last time I was before you was the winter storm that occurred in the spring, and these changes here are a reflection of our most recent legislative section. So the vast majority of these policy changes are legal. Approximately about 950 pages are legal changes, which will be automatically accepted by TASB to keep up with current law. But do have about 25 pages of local changes, which encompass about 12 of our policies. They've all been vetted by their appropriate department. You guys all have annotated track changes in your board book for you to look over. This will be a part of the consent agenda on December 13th, but I am happy to take any questions.
Ms. Cox. Ms. Hassett.
I had a question. I didn't write it down earlier today, and now I can't remember.
We'll come back to you.
Yeah. I'll probably end up remembering tomorrow and emailing
Yeah, you can email her.
That's what I was going to say. I will admit that I have not read all these pages yet, but I shall, and if I have any questions, I will ask you.
Ms. Sells. Ms. Brosnick.
I just want to give a note that TASB performs these services, that we are a member of them, and I cannot imagine the amount of time it would take you and your small but energized staff to do this work. So this is a benefit that we do derive from being a member of TASB.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Bonner.
No questions. Thank you.
I don't have any questions either, but what's caused me to really look at this year is my animus towards the legislature on HB 1525 and the inclusion of some language there that none of them seem to recall the language. And so as I'm looking at Ms. Sell's computer and the edit format that you've got, I'll make sure to read through those. But thank you very much. Okay. With that said, I've got two closing comments. First of all, I forgot to mention that Mr. Patterson, our intern, will actually be at our luncheon tomorrow, the chamber luncheon, but also after that touring the Westside Aquatic Center with Dr. Rapp. And so just know that it's getting some attention. Second thing to note, as the board discussed, Mr. Youngs is going to delay his retirement a little bit and help us out, and we're extremely grateful.
I wouldn't have done it if I didn't like y'all.
Well, we're grateful, and the reason I want to mention it publicly, I think that those who are watching us need to hear that you have graciously extended for the stability of LISD, and we care for you. I look forward to your financial report next week, the most exciting item, and so the board is grateful to you, Mr. Youngs, and your family for working with us on that transition. The second thing is, Mr. Patterson will be here tomorrow, effectively tomorrow. I don't know what his morning schedule looks like. I'm sure that Jamie's got a bunch of things for him, getting badges, that type of thing, but he will be here and present, and so we're, again, confident with his the work that he's going to do for us in the transition, and just want to say that publicly. With that said, if there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 9:36 p.m.